The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly beyond the viewport as Jordan Hale stared at the digital inheritance document for the third time that day. His father's final gift, a biofarm orbiting a distant colony world called Solara Prime, seemed more like a burden than a blessing. As an Earth engineer who specialized in domestic infrastructure, Jordan had never harbored ambitions of interstellar travel or alien agriculture. "You're reading it again?" The melodic, multi-toned voice of his alien stepsister Mira drifted into the room. Her iridescent scales caught the artificial light as she moved with the fluid grace characteristic of Salarans. Jordan sighed and closed the document. "Just making sure I haven't missed anything. A biofarm. In orbit. Around your homeworld." What was Dad thinking? Mira settled beside him, her four-fingered hand resting lightly on his shoulder. "Your father believed in building bridges between our worlds. This farm represents the culmination of his vision, Zalaran biology meeting human engineering. And now it's my problem," Jordan muttered, running a hand through his dark hair. "Our problem," Mira corrected. "I'll be accompanying you. Of course, someone needs to translate Zalaran customs before you accidentally trigger a blood feud." Jordan smiled despite himself. In the 5 years since his father had married Mira's mother, forming an unprecedented human-Zalaran union, Mira had become the sister he never had. Her wry humor and fierce loyalty had been crucial after their parents' shuttle accident last year. "What about your friend, the one you're always on calls with?" Mira's facial ridges fluttered, the Zalaran equivalent of a secretive smile. "Siren. Oh, she'll be there. She's already stationed at the farm. She was Father's chief biologist." "Great," Jordan said, without enthusiasm. He'd never met Siren in person, only glimpsed her in the background of Mira's communications, tall, imposing, with deep blue scales and an intense gaze that seemed to pierce through the screen. Another alien to misunderstand. "You'll like her," Mira said confidently. "She's brilliant and curious about humans." "Wonderful," Jordan muttered. Another xenoanthropologist to study the strange human in his unnatural habitat. Mira laughed, the sound like crystal bells. "No, Jordan, not like that. Siren is..." She paused, seemingly searching for the right words. "She's special. To our clan. And to me." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "Special how?" But Mira was already moving toward the door. "Pack light. Zalaran stations are warmer than you're used to. And bring that adaptive clothing I gave you for your birthday. Trust me, you'll need it." Before Jordan could press her further, she was gone, leaving him with an uneasy feeling that there was something important she wasn't telling him. The journey to Solara Prime took 3 weeks in cryo-sleep. Jordan awoke to find himself already in orbit around a swirling green-blue planet, its atmosphere dense with crystalline clouds that refracted sunlight into prismatic patterns. The orbital docking station looked like an enormous metallic flower, with petals that unfurled to reveal landing bays. "Homeworld," Mira said softly beside him, her voice thick with emotion. "It's been 2 years since I've seen it with my own eyes." As their shuttle approached the docking station, Jordan studied the structure that would be his new home and inheritance. The biofarm was a marvel of bioengineering, a ring of connected habitation modules surrounding a central hub, with transparent domes housing terraced gardens that pulsed with bioluminescent plant life. "It's bigger than I expected," Jordan admitted. "Your father expanded operations last year. The farm now supplies medicinal compounds to 3 systems. The shuttle docked with a gentle thrum, and after a decontamination procedure that left Jordan's skin tingling, they stepped onto the station. A small reception committee awaited them, 3 Zalarans in formal attire that resembled flowing robes embedded with living organisms that shifted and glowed. "Welcome home, clan sister," said the tallest of them, pressing her forehead to Mira's in greeting. "Commander Talus," Mira returned the gesture. May your waters flow clear. Talus, whom Jordan now recognized as the station commander from his father's communications, turned to him with a formal bow. Jordan Hale, son of Benjamin Hale, Zalara Prime welcomes you and acknowledges your inheritance rights as confirmed by both Earth Central Authority and the Zalaran High Council. Jordan attempted to return the bow. Thank you, Commander. I hope to continue my father's work here. Talus's expression remained unreadable to Jordan's human eyes. Your quarters have been prepared according to specification. You will find all necessary documentation awaiting you there. Tomorrow, we will begin formal transfer of command protocols. I appreciate that, Jordan said, feeling increasingly out of his depth. The air was thick with unfamiliar scents, spicy, organic, slightly metallic. As Commander Talus and the others led them from the docking bay, Jordan whispered to Mira, "Where's your friend? I thought she'd be here." Mira's scales rippled with what might have been amusement or nervousness. "Siren awaits us elsewhere. Be patient, Jordan." They were led through corridors that seemed alive, walls embedded with pulsing bioluminescent veins that provided both light and environmental regulation. The architecture was unlike anything on Earth, with curves and organic forms replacing the angular efficiency Jordan was accustomed to. Finally, they reached a section marked with symbols Jordan recognized from his father's files as personal quarters. Commander Talus gestured to a doorway adorned with both Zalaran script and English lettering that read, "Hale Residence." "Your combined quarters," Talus announced. "As per station tradition, and the request filed upon your inheritance notification." "Combined?" Jordan frowned. "I was expecting my own space." Mira touched his arm in warning, but before she could speak, the door slid open. Standing in the entrance was Siren. In person, she was even more striking than in the holographic communications. Taller than Mira by nearly a head, with scales the deep blue of Earth's oceans and eyes that shimmered between gold and amber. Unlike most Zalarans Jordan had seen, her head crests were elaborate and adorned with what appeared to be ceremonial metalwork. She wore a fitted uniform that combined Zalaran biomaterials with what looked like human-designed tactical elements. "Jordan Hale," she said, her voice deeper than Mira's, with harmonics that resonated in his chest. "At last we meet in the flesh. I am Siren, first biologist of Terrace 7 and honor-bound to Clan Hale Vex." She stepped forward and, to Jordan's shock, placed both her hands on his shoulders, bringing her face close to his, close enough that he could feel her warm breath against his skin. "I claim emotional co-synchronization rights as is my privilege," she announced formally. "From this cycle forward, as the inheritor has arrived, I shall resume my rightful place as his quarters mate." Jordan froze, looking desperately at Mira, who seemed suspiciously interested in the ceiling patterns. "I'm sorry," Jordan said carefully. "There seems to be some confusion. I was expecting private quarters." Siren's eyes narrowed, and the bioluminescent patterns beneath her scales flashed in what Jordan instinctively recognized as displeasure. "There is no confusion," she stated. "Your father granted me co-synchronization status after I saved his life during the Crimson Tide outbreak. As his inheritor, you assume both his privileges and his obligations. This is documented and filed with both Earth Central and the High Council." Jordan looked to Commander Talus, hoping for intervention, but the commander merely inclined his head. "The biologist speaks truth. The arrangement is binding under interspecies law." "Mira?" Jordan turned to his stepsister, feeling ambushed. Mira finally met his eyes, her expression apologetic but firm. "I should have explained earlier, but I feared you might refuse to come. Siren has rights under Zalaran custom that cannot be denied without grave insult to her and our clan." "What exactly," Jordan asked slowly, "does emotional co-synchronization mean?" Siren answered before Mira could. "It means we share living quarters, as your father and I did. It means I have the right to provide biological and emotional support through proximity. It means we are linked in the station's systems and protocols. Her expression softened slightly. It does not mean what humans often assume upon first hearing the term. We'll leave you to settle in, Commander Tallis said, clearly considering the matter resolved. The formal inheritance ceremony will be held tomorrow at first light cycle. Before Jordan could protest further, Tallis and the other Zalarans departed, leaving him with Mira and Sayeren at the threshold of what was apparently now their shared living space. You should have told me, Jordan said to Mira, not bothering to hide his irritation. Would you have come if I had? Mira asked. That's not the point. It is precisely the point. Siren interjected. Your father understood the importance of Zalaran customs. He respected our ways. There was a challenge in her tone, as if she was already assessing whether Jordan would measure up to his father's legacy. Jordan took a deep breath. Look, on Earth, people don't share private quarters unless they're in a relationship. This is unusual for me. Most Zalaran customs will be unusual for you, Siren stated matter-of-factly. As human customs were initially unusual for me. Adaptation is necessary. Jordan wanted to argue further, but exhaustion from the journey and the overwhelming nature of his new surroundings caught up with him. Fine, we'll discuss this more later. I need to rest. Of course. Siren stepped aside, allowing him entry to the quarters. Inside. Jordan found a space that reflected his father's taste for blending cultures. Earth furniture had been modified to accommodate Zalaran physiology. The living area featured a central water feature, important in Zalaran culture, surrounded by comfortable seating. The walls pulsed gently with the same bioluminescent veins that ran throughout the station. Your sleeping chamber is through there. Siren indicated a doorway to the right. I have maintained it according to human preferences. Thank you, Jordan said stiffly, moving toward the indicated room. Jordan, Mira called after him. I must report to medical for reacclimation protocols. Will you be all right? I'll be fine, he said, though he wasn't at all sure that was true. Once Mira had gone, an awkward silence fell between Jordan and Siren. She watched him with those unsettling amber eyes, her posture perfect, hands clasped behind her back. You are displeased, she observed. Wouldn't you be? If you suddenly learned you had to share your personal space with a stranger? We are not strangers, Siren countered. I have known your clan for 7 Earth years. I worked alongside your father daily. I have spoken with Mira about you many times. That doesn't make us... Jordan gestured vaguely between them. No, Siren agreed. It does not. But it is a beginning. She moved to a control panel and adjusted something. The lighting shifted subtly, becoming more similar to Earth standard. I have studied human comfort parameters. Is this better? The gesture, small as it was, deflated some of Jordan's anger. Yes. Thank you. Siren nodded once. You should rest. Tomorrow will be demanding. Jordan retreated to the sleeping chamber, which, true to Siren's word, had been arranged to human specifications. A proper bed rather than the water-filled sleeping platforms Zalarans preferred. Earth standard temperature controls, even a small collection of physical books that had belonged to his father. As the door closed behind him, Jordan sank onto the bed, overwhelmed. In less than a day, he had traveled to an alien world, inherited a massive agricultural operation, and been informed he would be sharing living quarters with his stepsister's intimidating best friend. What have I gotten myself into? He muttered, lying back and staring at the ceiling, where tiny points of bioluminescence mimicked an Earth night sky. Despite his exhaustion, sleep came fitfully. Jordan's dreams were filled with endless corridors and Siren's penetrating gaze following him through the station. The next morning, or what passed for morning on a space station with artificial day cycles, Jordan awoke to the sound of movement in the main living area. He dressed quickly in the adaptive clothing Mira had recommended, which adjusted its insulation properties to match the warmer Solaran standard temperature. When he emerged from his room, he found Siren seated cross-legged before the water feature. Her eyes closed in what appeared to be meditation. She wore a different uniform today, one that left her arms bare, revealing intricate patterns that seemed to be both natural markings and some form of ritual scarification. Not wanting to disturb her, Jordan moved quietly toward what he hoped was a food preparation area. Before he could reach it, however, Siren spoke without opening her eyes. "There is nutrition prepared for you on the thermal unit." Jordan spotted a covered tray on a countertop. Lifting the cover, he found what appeared to be a human breakfast, synthesized but recognizable eggs, a protein cube, and something resembling toast. "Thank you," he said, surprised at the consideration. Siren opened her eyes and rose fluidly to her feet. "Your father preferred to maintain certain Earth customs regarding morning nutrition. I have kept his preferences in the station's memory." Jordan sat at the small dining table and began to eat, finding the food surprisingly palatable. "You and my father were close?" Siren joined him at the table, though she did not eat. "We were quarters mates for 3 years. Such proximity breeds either conflict or understanding. We chose understanding." "But you weren't—" Jordan hesitated, unsure how to phrase the question delicately. "We were not mating partners, if that is your question," Siren said bluntly. "Co-synchronization is not sexual in nature. It is a bond of mutual support and proximity." Jordan nearly choked on his synthesized toast. "Right. Good to know. Your discomfort with direct discussion of biological functions is typical of humans," Siren observed. "It is inefficient." "Maybe," Jordan conceded. "But it's also polite." "Politeness varies between cultures," Siren countered. "Among Zalarans, directness is considered respectful. Obfuscation suggests deception." Before Jordan could respond, a chime sounded throughout the quarters. "The inheritance ceremony summons." Siren stood. "We must not be late." The central hub of the station had been transformed for the ceremony. What Jordan assumed was normally a functional space had been adorned with flowing fabrics in vibrant colors and vessels containing water from what Mira quietly explained were sacred springs on Zalara Prime's surface. Nearly 100 people were gathered, mostly Zalarans, but also a handful of humans and representatives from other species who worked on the station or had business relationships with the biofarm. Jordan felt painfully conspicuous as Commander Tallis led him to a central platform. The ceremony itself was surprisingly brief. Tallis spoke formal words in both Zalaran and English, acknowledging Benjamin Hale's contributions to interspecies cooperation and confirming Jordan's right of inheritance. Jordan was asked to place his hand on a biotechnological device that scanned his DNA and officially registered him in the station's systems as the new administrator. "The biofarm recognizes Jordan Hale," announced a melodic artificial voice that seemed to come from the station itself. "All protocols transferred, all permissions granted." A ripple of what Jordan interpreted as approval moved through the Zalaran attendees, a synchronous fluttering of head crests and scale patterns. As the formal part of the ceremony concluded, attendees approached Jordan to introduce themselves. He met section leaders, botanists, engineers, and security personnel, all offering variations of the same message. They had respected his father and hoped Jordan would continue his progressive policies. Throughout it all, Siren remained at his side, occasionally translating cultural nuances or providing whispered context about individuals. Despite his initial resistance to her presence, Jordan found her knowledge invaluable. "The female approaching now is Dr. Nyala," Siren murmured. "Head of genetic adaptation. Very traditional. She opposed your father's integration of Earth agricultural techniques." Jordan nodded slightly in acknowledgement as a severe-looking Zalaran with pale green scales approached. "Inheritor Hale," Dr. Nyala's tone managed to make his title sound like an insult. I trust you will take time to fully understand our operations before implementing any changes. Dr. Nyala. Jordan inclined his head respectfully. I look forward to learning about all aspects of the biofarm. My father spoke highly of the genetic preservation work your department conducts. Surprise flickered across Nyala's features before she controlled it. Indeed, when you wish to observe our laboratories, have Siren arrange it. Her gaze shifted to Siren. I see you maintain your claim on the Hale quarters. Appropriate, given your history. Something in her tone made Jordan uncomfortable, though he couldn't identify exactly why. Beside him, he felt Siren stiffen. My claim is recognized by station law and Earth Central, Siren said, her voice carrying harmonics Jordan hadn't heard before, lower, almost threatening. Of course, Nyala replied smoothly, as is your right as a synchronization partner. She turned back to Jordan. Fascinating. How your father embraced our customs. One hopes his son will be equally adaptable. After Nyala moved on, Jordan whispered to Siren. What was that about? Politics, Siren replied tersely. Dr. Nyala represents factions who believe Solara Prime should limit outside influence. Your father's marriage to a Zalaran and his support for interspecies cooperation made him a target for their criticism. And what did she mean about your claim on the quarters? Siren's bioluminescent patterns pulsed briefly. Some considered it inappropriate for me to share quarters with your father. Despite the legitimate basis for the arrangement, they will undoubtedly feel the same about our situation. Before Jordan could ask more questions, Mira appeared at his side. You're doing well, she assured him. Just one more formal requirement, then we can escape to the celebration. The final requirement turned out to be a tour of the Central Operations Center, where Jordan was introduced to the station's primary systems. Though he tried to absorb the information being presented, his mind kept returning to Siren and the complicated politics he seemed to have inherited along with the biofarm. The celebration that followed was held in one of the biodomes, where food and beverages from multiple worlds were served among flourishing alien vegetation. Jordan found himself frequently separated from Mira and Siren as various department heads cornered him to discuss their needs and concerns. 3 hours in, exhausted by the constant cultural navigation and overwhelmed by new information, Jordan retreated to a quiet corner near a gently bubbling pool filled with floating luminescent plants. He was contemplating whether he could slip away without causing offense when a human voice broke into his thoughts. Overwhelmed already? That's not a good sign. Jordan turned to find a human man in a crisp corporate uniform watching him with an amused expression. Just taking a moment to process, Jordan replied, straightening. And you are? Elliot Wade, Virel Corporation. The man extended his hand. We're your primary distribution partner for pharmaceutical derivatives. Jordan shook the offered hand. Nice to meet you. I haven't had a chance to review all our business relationships yet. Wade's smile didn't reach his eyes. Understandable. It's a lot to take in, especially for someone with no background in xenobiology or interstellar commerce. The condescension in Wade's tone was unmistakable. Jordan felt a flash of irritation but kept his expression neutral. I'm a quick study. I'm sure you are, Wade said smoothly. But the learning curve here is steep. Virel has been suggesting for some time that operations of this complexity really require professional corporate management. Now Jordan understood. You want to buy the biofarm? Wade spread his hands in a gesture of reasonableness. We want to ensure its continued success. Your father was uniquely qualified to navigate the complexities of this operation. With all due respect, you're an Earth engineer with no relevant experience. Yet the biofarm is legally mine, Jordan pointed out. For now, Wade agreed. But ask yourself if you're really the right person to manage it. Virel could offer you a very generous buyout, enough to set you up comfortably on Earth for life. No more dealing with alien customs or quarrelsome Zalarans. Like Dr. Nyala? Jordan asked, making a connection. Wade's expression flickered with surprise before settling back into corporate smoothness. Dr. Nyala is a brilliant scientist with legitimate concerns about outside influence on Zalaran biotechnology. She and others like her would prefer to see the biofarm under Zalaran control. Virel offers a middle path, human ownership, but with greater respect for Zalaran autonomy. Jordan doubted very much that a corporation like Virel had any interest in Zalaran autonomy beyond what was profitable, but he kept that thought to himself. I'll consider your points, Mr. Wade, but for now, I intend to honor my father's legacy by continuing his work here. Wade's smile tightened. Of course, just something to think about. The offer remains open. He handed Jordan a small data chip. Our preliminary proposal. Take your time reviewing it. As Wade walked away, Jordan felt a presence at his side. Siren had appeared silently, her gaze fixed on Wade's retreating form. Viral Corporation has made 3 attempts to acquire this station in the past year, she said without preamble. Your father rejected each offer. I can see why, Jordan replied, pocketing the data chip. They don't strike me as particularly concerned with the biofarm's original mission. Siren's eyes shifted to him, surprise evident in their golden depths. You perceive this quickly. Your father said humans often prioritize profit over purpose. Some do, Jordan acknowledged. Not all of us. For the first time. Siren's expression softened slightly. This is good to know. The moment of understanding was interrupted by a station-wide announcement requesting Jordan's presence in the main control room. When they arrived, Commander Tallis was waiting with Mira and several senior staff members. We've received a priority communication from Earth Central, Tallis explained without preamble. They're requesting immediate verification of your inheritance claim. Jordan frowned. We just completed the formal ceremony. All the documentation was submitted weeks ago. Nevertheless, Tallis said, they claim to have received a challenge to your administrative rights. Let me guess, Jordan said grimly. From Viral Corporation. Tallis's head crest rippled in confirmation. You have been informed, then. Just now, their representative suggested I might not be qualified to manage the biofarm. This is a legal delaying tactic, Mira said angrily. They hope to create enough uncertainty to force a sale. Can they do that? Jordan asked. Not if we respond correctly, Tallis said. As station commander, I have already transmitted confirmation of your ceremonial investiture, but Earth Central is requesting your personal statement affirming your intention to maintain operational control. Jordan stepped to the communication console. I'll record it now. After sending his formal response to Earth Central, Jordan returned to his quarters with Siren walking silently beside him. The day's events had left him mentally exhausted, and despite the unfamiliarity of his situation, he was looking forward to sleep. Inside their shared living space. Siren moved to a panel on the wall and adjusted several controls. The lighting dimmed, and the ambient temperature shifted slightly. You are tired, she observed. Human physiology requires more rest after stress. Is it that obvious? Jordan asked, sinking onto one of the seating platforms. Your biological signs are clear to those who know how to read them. Siren replied. She hesitated, then added, Your father also found ceremonial functions draining. Jordan looked up at her, struck by the comparison. You really did know him well, didn't you? Yes. For the first time, Siren's composure seemed to falter slightly. His loss was significant. To the station. To Mira. To me. The admission of personal feeling surprised Jordan. I miss him too, he said quietly. Siren nodded once, acknowledging the shared sentiment. You should rest now. Tomorrow we begin the real work of transition. Jordan stood. then paused. Siren, thank you for your help today. I would have been completely lost without your guidance. It is my duty as your co-synchronization partner, she replied formally. But Jordan thought he detected a slight pleased modulation in her voice. Even so, thank you. He turned toward his sleeping chamber, then stopped. One question, where do you sleep? Siren gestured to a door on the opposite side of the living area. I have my own sleeping chamber, configured to Zalaran preferences. We share only the common areas. Oh. Jordan felt oddly relieved and, confusingly, slightly disappointed. Good night, then. Rest well. Jordan Hale. Siren replied. The next morning, Jordan awoke feeling more rested than he had expected. The initial shock of his new circumstances was beginning to fade, replaced by a determination to understand the biofarm and its operations. If Viral Corporation thought they could intimidate him into selling, they would be disappointed. He emerged from his sleeping chamber to find Siren already awake and reviewing data on a holographic display that hovered above the central water feature. She wore what appeared to be a laboratory uniform today, with protective elements incorporated into the design. Good morning, Jordan said, moving toward the food preparation area. Your rest cycle was productive, Siren observed. Your biological readings show improved metrics. Jordan paused in the act of retrieving his breakfast. You monitor my biological readings while I sleep? All quarters mates on the station are linked through the environmental systems, Siren explained. It is a safety protocol. If your readings indicated distress, the station would alert me. That's both reassuring and slightly invasive, Jordan admitted, sitting down with his food. Privacy is conceptualized differently in Zalaran culture, Siren said. We believe in physical privacy, but consider biological monitoring a form of care and protection. Jordan considered this as he ate. I suppose that makes sense. From a certain perspective, it's just very different from Earth norms. Yes, Siren agreed. Your father also found this adjustment challenging at first. Eventually, he came to appreciate the benefits. What's on the agenda for today? Jordan asked. Changing the subject, Siren touched the holographic display, sending it floating toward Jordan. A tour of the primary terraces. As administrator, you must understand our core agricultural operations. The display showed a schematic of the station's growing areas. 7 massive terraced biodomes radiating from the central hub like petals of a flower. Each terrace specializes in different categories of botanical specimens, Siren explained. My primary responsibility is Terrace 7, where we cultivate the most sensitive medicinal species. After breakfast, Siren led Jordan through the station to the entrance of Terrace 1. As the massive doors slid open, Jordan gasped involuntarily. Before him stretched an enormous space, filled with vibrant plant life arranged in concentric circles. Walkways spiraled between the growing areas, and automated tending systems moved silently among the vegetation. The air was thick with moisture and filled with a symphony of subtle scents. Terrace 1 focuses on basic nutritional crops, Siren explained as they walked. These supply the station's food needs and provide emergency rations for colony worlds in this sector. Throughout the day, they moved from terrace to terrace, with Siren providing detailed explanations of the operations and introducing Jordan to the specialists who managed each area. By the time they reached Terrace 6, Jordan's head was spinning with information about growth cycles, genetic modifications, and interplanetary agricultural regulations. One more, Siren said, leading him toward the entrance to Terrace. My domain, unlike the other terraces, which had been bustling with activity. Terrace 7's entrance was guarded, and access required both Siren's biometric scan and Jordan's new administrator credentials. Security is significantly higher here, Jordan observed as the heavy doors opened. With good reason, Siren replied. Terrace 7 contains our most valuable specimens, compounds that form the basis for treatments of several interstellar diseases. Some are worth more than this entire station. Inside, Terrace 7 was noticeably different from the other growing areas. The plants here were smaller, more delicate, and many were contained within specialized environments that regulated every aspect of their growth. The lighting was dimmer, with a purplish tint that Siren explained was optimal for the sensitive specimens. As they moved through the terrace, Jordan noticed a section cordoned off with what appeared to be a force field. Inside, plants with iridescent blue flowers grew in carefully controlled soil beds. "What are those?" he asked, pointing. Siren's expression became guarded. "Energy flowers. They are difficult to explain to those unfamiliar with Zalaran biology." "Try me," Jordan suggested. After a moment's hesitation, Siren led him closer to the force field. Energy flowers are semi-sentient botanical organisms native to Solara Prime. They respond to and store emotional energy, particularly from Zalarans. They are used in our most sacred ceremonies and form the basis for several important medications. Jordan studied the gently pulsing flowers with new interest. Semi-sentient plants? That's fascinating. They are more than plants in the Earth sense. Siren said, "They contain neural networks similar to simplified brains. They can recognize individuals, respond to emotional states, even store memories in a limited fashion." "Is that why they're so heavily protected?" "Partly," Siren admitted, "but primarily because they are the source of XL273, the compound Viral Corporation is most interested in acquiring." Jordan looked at her sharply. "What does XL273 do?" "It enhances neuroplasticity across multiple species. In humans, it can repair neural damage previously considered permanent. In Zalarans, it strengthens our natural telepathic abilities. In both cases, it requires careful handling and precise dosing. And let me guess, Viral wants to mass-produce it?" Siren nodded. Without understanding the sacred nature of the source, energy flowers cannot be artificially propagated. They must be cultivated by Zalarans with specific genetic markers. Your father understood this and respected our traditions regarding their care, which is why he refused to sell to Virel, Jordan concluded. "Yes, among other reasons." Siren's gaze was penetrating. "Will you continue his protection of these specimens?" The question seemed to carry weight beyond its surface meaning. Jordan sensed he was being tested. "I would never allow sacred Zalaran resources to be exploited," he said firmly, "especially not for corporate profit." Something shifted in Siren's expression, a subtle relaxation of tension Jordan hadn't even realized was there. "Your father said you would understand." I was not certain he was correct. The moment was interrupted by Jordan's communication device signaling an incoming message. It was Mira, requesting their immediate presence in the operations center. When they arrived, they found Commander Tallis and Mira in heated discussion with a holographic projection of Elliot Wade. "Completely unacceptable," Tallis was saying. "You have no authority to demand access to our proprietary systems. The regulatory audit requires full transparency." Wade's hologram replied smoothly. "Viral Corporation, as your primary distribution partner, has been authorized by Earth Central to conduct a complete review of operations following the change in administration." "Convenient timing," Jordan said as he joined the group. "Less than a day after I refused your buyout offer." Wade's holographic gaze shifted to Jordan. "Administrator Hale, this isn't personal. It's standard procedure when operational control transfers, especially to someone with no experience in the field." "My credentials have been verified and accepted," Jordan countered, "both by Earth Central and the Zalaran High Council. Nevertheless, the audit will proceed." Wade's tone left no room for argument. "My team will arrive tomorrow. I suggest you prepare your staff for full cooperation." After the communication ended, Tallis turned to Jordan. "This is highly irregular. Earth Central has never authorized a corporate entity to conduct regulatory audits before." They're looking for leverage, Mira said angrily. Any technical violation they can use to challenge Jordan's administration. Or access to data about the energy flowers, Siren added quietly. Jordan considered their options. Can we refuse the audit? Not without triggering automatic sanctions, Tallis replied. But we can limit their access to sensitive areas. Administrative quarters, for instance, are protected by both Earth and Solaran privacy statutes. And Terrace 7? Jordan asked. Classified as a cultural preservation zone under interspecies law, Siren said. They would need specific authorization from the Solaran High Council to access it. Then we prepare, Jordan decided. Limit access to essential systems only. Increase security on the terraces. And I want all data regarding XL-273 and the energy flowers moved to secure storage immediately. Tallis nodded in approval. I will see it done. As they left the operations center, Siren fell into step beside Jordan. Your response was decisive, like your father's would have been. Jordan glanced at her, surprised by the comparison. I have a feeling Varel won't give up easily. No, Siren agreed. They will not. But neither will we. The audit team arrived the next morning, 5 humans in Varel corporate uniforms, led by Elliot Wade himself, Jordan, Siren, and Commander Tallis met them at the docking bay. Administrator Hale, Wade greeted him with artificial warmth. Thank you for accommodating us on such short notice. We have nothing to hide, Jordan replied evenly. Commander Tallis has prepared access credentials for your team. They'll allow you to review all standard operational data. Wade's smile tightened slightly. Standard operational data? I believe I was clear that this audit requires full system access. And I believe Earth Central regulations are clear about the limits of corporate auditing authority, Jordan countered. You'll find we've provided everything the law requires. Wade's gaze shifted to Siren, who stood silently at Jordan's side. Your father's companion still maintains her position. I see. The way Wade emphasized companion carried insinuations that made Jordan's jaw clench. Beside him, he felt Siren stiffen. First biologist Siren is a valued member of our leadership team, Jordan said coldly, and my co-synchronization partner under Zalaran law. How progressive of you to continue that arrangement, Wade remarked. Though I wonder if you fully understand the implications. Before Jordan could respond, Commander Tallis stepped forward. Your team's credentials have been activated. Mr. Wade, I suggest you begin your audit promptly. You have 48 hours, as specified in the authorization. The first day of the audit proceeded without major incident. Wade's team dispersed throughout the station, reviewing operations and conducting interviews with staff. Jordan spent most of the day in meetings with department heads, ensuring everyone understood which information could be shared and which was protected. By evening, he was exhausted and irritable. He returned to his quarters to find Siren already there, reviewing security footage on the holographic display. They've been testing boundaries all day, she reported without preamble. 2 attempts to access Terrace 7, 1 attempt to connect to the private research database. Jordan sank onto the seating platform. Not surprising. Find anything concerning? One of their team spent 3 hours interviewing Dr. Nyala. Siren's tone was neutral, but Jordan had begun to recognize the subtle shifts in her harmonics that indicated concern. Do you think she's working with them? Nyala has always been politically opportunistic. Siren replied carefully. She disagreed with your father's methods, but respected his authority. With you, she may see an opportunity for change. Jordan rubbed his temples, feeling a headache forming. Great. External pressure from Virel. Internal pressure from Nyala. Anything else I should worry about? Siren studied him for a moment, then moved to a cabinet near the water feature. She retrieved what appeared to be a small vial of luminescent liquid and offered it to him. For your head pain, she explained, non-invasive. It absorbs through the skin. Jordan hesitated, then accepted the vial, applying a drop to each temple as Siren demonstrated. Almost immediately, the throbbing began to subside. "Thank you," he said with genuine gratitude. "That's remarkable." "A derivative of Terrace 4 specimens," Siren explained. "Your father helped develop the delivery mechanism. He never mentioned it in his communications," Jordan noted. "There was much he did not mention," Siren said, a hint of something like sadness in her voice. "The station became his life in ways he perhaps did not fully communicate to his Earth family." The observation stung slightly. "I suppose he had two lives, in a way, Earth and Solara." Siren considered this. Not two lives. One life that expanded to embrace more than his origin culture. It is not common among humans. "No," Jordan agreed. "It's not." He studied Siren thoughtfully. "You miss him?" It wasn't a question, but Siren answered anyway. "Yes, he was a friend, despite our differences." The admission of emotional attachment surprised Jordan. Siren had always seemed so controlled, so formal. "I'm beginning to understand why he stayed," Jordan said quietly, looking around at the quarters that now, despite their alienness, were beginning to feel somewhat like home. Siren's bioluminescent patterns shifted in what Jordan was learning to recognize as thoughtful consideration. "Perhaps, in time, you will understand more than that." Before Jordan could ask what she meant, an urgent chime sounded from the communication system. "Security alert in Terrace 7, announced the station's voice. "Unauthorized access attempt in progress." Siren was in motion instantly, moving to the door. "Come, we must respond." They raced through the corridors, joining Commander Talus and a security team outside Terrace 7. The massive doors were sealed, but the access panel showed signs of tampering. "Status?" Siren demanded. "Two intruders," Talus reported grimly. "They bypassed the primary security protocols using administrator-level access codes." Jordan felt a chill. "That's impossible. Only I have those codes." "The system recognized the credentials as authentic," Talus said. "They're attempting to access the energy flower enclosure now." "Override the doors," Siren ordered. "Emergency protocol 7 Alpha." Talus pressed his hand to the access panel and spoke a series of Zalaran words. The doors slid open, revealing the dim purple lighting of Terrace 7 beyond. "Security teams, converge on the energy flower section," Talus commanded into his communication device. "Containment protocols only. No weapons fire near the specimens." Jordan followed Siren and Talus into the terrace, moving quickly but quietly through the winding pathways between the delicate specimens. As they approached the energy flower enclosure, they heard voices. "Hurry up," a male voice urged. "The system will have registered the override by now." "I'm working as fast as I can," replied a female voice that Jordan recognized with a jolt as Dr. Nyala's. "These specimens are delicate. Rush the extraction, and the XL-273 becomes unstable." Jordan rounded a final curve to see two figures inside the energy flower enclosure, Dr. Nyala and one of Wade's audit team members. The force field had been deactivated, and Nyala was carefully extracting something from one of the iridescent blue flowers. "Stop!" Siren's voice rang out, harmonics dropping to threatening lower registers that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Nyala looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to defiance. "First biologist, I might have known you would be the first to respond." "Step away from the energy flowers, Doctor," Talus ordered, as security personnel moved to surround the enclosure. "You don't understand what's at stake," Nyala said, continuing her careful extraction. "Viral Corporation has offered to establish a Zalaran-controlled research facility. No more human oversight. No more divided loyalties. And in exchange, you give them access to XL-273. Jordan stepped forward. "Did they mention their patent application? or their plans for mass production. Uncertainty flickered across Nyala's features. What patent application? Filed 3 months ago with Earth Central. Jordan bluffed, hoping his instincts about Virel's intentions were correct. My father discovered it. That's why he refused their buyout offers. The human from Virel lunged suddenly, grabbing a container of extracted material from Nyala. Enough talking. We have what we need. He pulled out a small device and pressed it. Throughout the terrace, alarm systems suddenly went silent, and emergency lights flickered. Station-wide systems disruption, Talis reported tensely. They've activated a sabotage protocol. The docking bay, Siren realized. They're creating a diversion to reach their ship. The viral agent used the momentary confusion to push past a security officer and sprint toward the terrace exit. Nyala, looking suddenly uncertain, remained where she was. Secure her, Talis ordered 2 security officers, then turned to Jordan and Siren. We must prevent them from leaving the station with those samples. The 3 of them raced after the fleeing agent, through corridors now filled with confused station personnel responding to the system's disruption. Emergency protocols had sealed several sections, forcing them to take a circuitous route toward the docking bay. He's heading for the maintenance shaft, Siren called, changing direction suddenly. This way! She led them through a narrow service corridor that Jordan hadn't known existed. They emerged into a vertical shaft with ladder rungs embedded in the walls, just in time to see the Virel agent climbing downward. Without hesitation, Siren leapt into the shaft, catching herself on the rungs several meters down, directly above the fleeing man. Her movements were fluid and precise, displaying a physical prowess Jordan hadn't witnessed before. Station security protocols are reactivating, Talis reported, checking a handheld device. Wade and the rest of his team are being detained in the operations center. Jordan started down the ladder after Siren, moving as quickly as he dared. Below, he could see the Virel agent had reached a junction and was attempting to force open a sealed door. Siren dropped the final distance, landing in a crouch behind the man. The sample, she demanded, her voice carrying dangerous harmonics. Return it now. The agent spun, revealing a weapon in his hand. Stay back, Zalaran. This neuronic disruptor will scramble your synapses for days. Siren didn't flinch. That sample is the lifeblood of my people. You will not take it. Your people? The man laughed harshly. Your people sell it to the highest bidder. At least Virel will make it available to everyone who needs it, at a price only the wealthy can afford. Jordan called down, still descending the ladder. After they've patented the processing method and controlled the supply, the agent glanced up at Jordan, momentarily distracted. It was all the opening Siren needed. She moved with blinding speed, one hand striking the weapon aside while the other clamped around the agent's wrist with enough force to make him cry out in pain. The container with the precious extract fell from his grasp. Jordan, now at the bottom of the ladder, lunged forward and caught the container before it could shatter on the floor. Security personnel arrived moments later, taking the Virel agent into custody. As the immediate crisis subsided, Jordan found himself standing in the narrow maintenance corridor with Siren, both of them breathing heavily from exertion. Quick thinking, he told her, handing over the container of extract. And impressive moves. Siren accepted the container, checking it carefully for damage. I was trained as a protector before I became a biologist. Some skills remain useful. Clearly, Jordan agreed. He studied her with new appreciation. You said the energy flowers are the lifeblood of your people. What did you mean, exactly? Siren's gaze met his. And for once, she didn't hide behind formality. They are connected to our consciousness in ways difficult to explain to non-Zalarans. They store our collective memories, our emotional imprints. They are, grid is perhaps the closest concept in your language, and you're one of the few who can cultivate them. Jordan recalled her earlier explanation. Yes. She hesitated, then continued. It is why your father granted me co-synchronization status, not merely as recognition for saving his life, but to ensure the energy flowers would always have a proper guardian with clan rights. Understanding dawned on Jordan. He was protecting them through you, by giving you a legal claim to remain on the station regardless of who inherited it. Yes, Siren confirmed, though he believed you would understand their importance once you arrived. I'm starting to, Jordan said quietly. As they made their way back to the central hub, Commander Tallis contacted them with an update. The system's disruption had been contained, and all of Wade's team were in custody. Earth Central had been notified of the attempted theft and corporate espionage. By the time they reached the operations center, a communication from Earth Central was waiting. The audit had been terminated, and Virel Corporation's distribution contract was under review for potential cancellation. A decisive victory, Tallis observed after the communication ended. For now, Jordan cautioned, but Virel won't give up easily. The XL-273 compound is too valuable, which is why we must strengthen our security protocols, Siren said, and perhaps reconsider some of our external partnerships. The next several hours were consumed with damage assessment, security reviews, and a lengthy interrogation of Dr. Nyala, who eventually admitted to providing Wade's team with access codes in exchange for promises of an independent research facility. It was well past midnight by the time Jordan and Siren finally returned to their quarters. The events of the day had left Jordan physically and emotionally drained, yet oddly exhilarated. For the first time since arriving at Zalara Prime, he felt like he had truly contributed to the station's welfare rather than simply inheriting his father's position. Inside their quarters, Siren moved immediately to the water feature, kneeling beside it and placing her hands in the gently flowing liquid. Jordan recognized it as a Zalara and calming ritual his father had mentioned in his journals. "Are you all right?" he asked, concerned by the unusual display of needed recovery. Siren's bioluminescent patterns pulsed slowly. The energy flowers were threatened. It creates resonances in those connected to them. I must center myself. Jordan sat on one of the seating platforms, watching her. I'm sorry, I didn't realize the connection was so profound. How could you? Siren lifted her hands from the water, the droplets clinging to her scales catching the light. Your father took years to fully comprehend it. I'd like to understand, Jordan said quietly. If you're willing to teach me. Siren turned to face him, her amber eyes studying him with an intensity that might once have made him uncomfortable but now felt somehow right. You mean this sincerely? I do, Jordan confirmed. I came here expecting to manage an agricultural operation, but it's clearly much more than that. It's a meeting point between cultures, a place of scientific and spiritual importance. I want to honor that properly. Something shifted in Siren's posture, a relaxation, a softening of her formal bearing. Then perhaps it is time to explain the full meaning of co-synchronization. She rose and moved to sit opposite him. Among Zalarans, co-synchronization is a form of bond between individuals who share responsibility for something precious, be it knowledge, tradition, or in our case, the guardianship of the energy flowers. Like a partnership, Jordan suggested. More intimate than what humans typically mean by that term. Siren explained. It involves a harmonizing of biorhythms, a sharing of living space, and eventually, a synchronization of purpose. And my father agreed to this with you? Yes, after he understood its importance to the preservation of the energy flowers. Siren's gaze was direct. The energy flowers respond best to synchronized guardians, individuals whose biological patterns have aligned through proximity and shared purpose. Jordan considered this. So our sharing quarters isn't just a legal formality or a cultural tradition. It serves a practical purpose for the specimens. Correct. Siren confirmed, though full synchronization requires time and mutual willingness. The implication hung in the air between them. Jordan found himself studying Siren with new eyes, seeing not just an alien biologist with intimidating formality, but a dedicated guardian who had shared his father's mission and now offered to share that same connection with him. "What does full synchronization involve?" he asked, his voice lower than he'd intended. Siren's bioluminescent patterns shifted to colors Jordan hadn't seen before, deeper blues with flashes of what might have been gold. Among other things, it requires shared sleep cycles in close proximity, what humans might call sharing a bed. Jordan felt heat rise in his face. "I see. Not for mating purposes," Siren clarified quickly, "but for the alignment of biorhythms, the synchronization of physiological cycles." "I understand," Jordan said, though he wasn't entirely sure he did. "And this would help protect the energy flowers?" "Yes. Their growth patterns respond to the synchronized biorhythms of their guardians. Your father discovered this accidentally when he began staying in the laboratory during a critical growth phase. His presence, combined with mine, created optimal conditions." Jordan took a deep breath. "So, when you claimed emotional co-synchronization rights upon my arrival, I was ensuring the continuation of the guardianship," Siren confirmed, "though I did not expect you to agree to full synchronization immediately. Your father and I reached that point only after many months of working together." The honesty of her explanation touched Jordan. She wasn't demanding anything. She was simply explaining a reality he hadn't understood. "Tonight's events have shown me how important the energy flowers are," he said thoughtfully. "Not just commercially, but culturally and scientifically. If sharing sleeping quarters helps protect them, you would consider this?" Siren's surprise was evident in both her expression and the sudden brightening of her bioluminescent patterns. "I would," Jordan confirmed, surprising himself with his certainty. "Not tonight. I think we're both exhausted from today's excitement. But yes, I'm willing to try." Siren's patterns pulsed with what Jordan interpreted as pleasure. "Your father said you would understand, once you saw the station for yourself. I doubted him. I was wrong. He knew me better than I sometimes knew myself," Jordan admitted with a small smile, as if on cue. The station's alert system activated again. "Security breach in Docking Bay 3, announced the station's voice. "Unauthorized departure in progress." Jordan and Siren exchanged a glance and rose simultaneously. "Wade," Siren guessed. "Trying to escape before formal charges are filed?" Jordan agreed. They moved together toward the door, their earlier exhaustion forgotten in the face of a new threat. As they raced through the corridors, Jordan found himself running in perfect step with Siren, anticipating her movements as if they had worked together for years rather than days. When they reached the docking bay control room, they found Commander Tallis already there, directing security teams. "Wade has overridden the docking clamps," Tallis reported. "His ship is preparing for emergency departure." "How?" Jordan demanded. "I thought he was in custody." "He was," Tallis said grimly. "He activated some form of personal cloaking technology and slipped past the guards. We're tracking him through the environmental systems, but he's almost reached his ship." On the monitoring screens, they could see Wade's corporate shuttle powering up, its engines glowing with pre-launch energy. "If he reaches Viral headquarters with the data he's already collected," Siren began. "They'll just send another team." Jordan finished her thought. "We need to stop him now." "The docking clamps are non-responsive," Tallis reported, his hands moving rapidly over the control panels. "He's locked us out of the system." Jordan studied the control panel, his engineer's mind racing. "What about the emergency containment field? Could we activate it around his ship?" "Possible," Tallis considered. "But it would require manual activation from the bay itself. The controls here have been compromised." "I'll go," Siren said immediately. "We'll go," Jordan corrected, meeting her gaze. The momentary surprise in her amber eyes was quickly replaced with understanding and something like approval. They moved together through the access corridor to Docking Bay 3, communicating with minimal words, as if the beginnings of their synchronization were already taking effect. When they reached the bay, they could see Wade's shuttle completing its pre-launch sequence, the boarding ramp already retracting. "The containment field controls are there." Siren pointed to a panel on the far side of the bay. "He'll see us if we approach directly," Jordan observed. Siren nodded. "I will create a diversion. You reach the controls." Before Jordan could protest, Siren was moving, her form blending remarkably well with the shadows of the bay. She positioned herself where Wade would be able to see her from the shuttle's viewport, then deliberately revealed herself. As Jordan had anticipated, weapon fire immediately erupted from the shuttle, targeting Siren. She moved with incredible speed and grace, drawing the fire away from Jordan's position and giving him the opening he needed. He sprinted to the control panel, his fingers flying over the unfamiliar configuration. Talus's voice in his communication device guided him through the sequence, but the controls were responding sluggishly, as if fighting against an override command. "Hurry, Jordan!" Siren called, still evading weapons fire. "The launch sequence is in final stage." Jordan abandoned the standard procedure and did what any good engineer would do. He improvised. Pulling open the panel, he bypassed the software controls entirely, manually connecting the circuits that would activate the containment field. With a crackle of energy, the field sprang into existence around Wade's shuttle just as its engines reached full power. The vessel strained against the invisible barrier, engines screaming in protest. "Field is holding," Talus's voice reported in their ears. "Security teams are entering the bay now." The shuttle's engine suddenly cut off, and the boarding ramp extended once more. Wade emerged, hands raised in surrender, as security personnel surrounded him. "This isn't over. Hale," he called across the bay. "Viral doesn't give up on acquisitions this valuable. We'll be back." "And we'll be waiting," Jordan replied calmly. As Wade was taken into custody, Jordan turned to find Siren watching him with an expression of unmistakable respect. "Quick thinking with the manual bypass," she commented, joining him by the control panel. "Basic engineering." Jordan shrugged. "Sometimes the direct approach is best." "Indeed." A hint of amusement colored her harmonics. "Your father would say the same." They returned to the operations center, where Talus was coordinating with Earth Central to arrange for official transport to remove Wade and his team from the station. The immediate crisis was over, but Jordan knew Virel's attempt to acquire the biofarm and its precious energy flowers was likely only the first of many challenges they would face. Hours later, with Wade and his team locked in secure quarters, awaiting transfer to Earth authorities, Jordan and Siren finally returned to their shared living space. The day's events had forged something between them, not yet the full synchronization Siren had described, but the beginnings of true partnership. "You fought well today," Siren observed as they stood in the center of their quarters. "For someone with no combat training. And you think like an engineer sometimes." Jordan returned with a smile. "For a biologist." Siren's bioluminescent patterns shifted in what Jordan now recognized as amusement. "Perhaps we are not so different after all." "Perhaps not," Jordan agreed. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only by the gentle sound of the water feature. Jordan felt a strange certainty settling over him, a sense that he was exactly where he needed to be. "About what we discussed earlier," he said finally. "The full synchronization." Siren's gaze met his, her expression carefully neutral. "Yes, I'd like to try," Jordan said simply. "Not because of obligation or duty, but because I think my father was right. This place, these specimens, they're worth protecting, And if synchronization helps with that, it is not a decision to be made lightly, Siren cautioned, though her bioluminescent patterns betrayed her pleasure at his words. Once begun, the process creates lasting changes in both participants. I understand, Jordan said, but after today, I feel like those changes might already be starting. Siren studied him for a long moment, then inclined her head in agreement. Tonight, then, we will begin. That night, as the station's cycle shifted to its dimmed night phase, Jordan stood nervously in the main living area. Siren emerged from her sleeping chamber wearing what appeared to be ceremonial attire, a simple garment of flowing fabric embedded with tiny living organisms that pulsed gently with bioluminescence. "The synchronization chamber is prepared," she said, indicating a doorway Jordan hadn't noticed before, or perhaps it hadn't been visible until now. He followed her through the doorway into a room unlike any he had seen on the station. The walls pulsed with the same bioluminescent veins that ran throughout the facility, but here they were concentrated, creating patterns that seemed to respond to their presence. In the center was a large sleeping platform, neither human bed nor Zalaran water basin, but something in between, a surface that seemed to adapt and shift subtly as they approached. "The platform contains elements of the energy flowers," Siren explained. "It will facilitate the synchronization process." Jordan swallowed nervously. "What do I need to do?" "Simply rest," Siren said gently. "The process is not painful or invasive. It is a natural alignment that occurs during sleep cycles." They settled onto the platform, which adjusted to support their different physiologies. Jordan lay stiffly at first, acutely aware of Siren's presence beside him, of the alienness of the situation. "Relax," Siren murmured, her voice carrying soothing harmonics. "Trust the process." Gradually, Jordan felt his tension easing. The bioluminescent patterns around them pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, then slowly shifted to match Siren's different cadence. Somewhere in between, a new rhythm emerged, neither fully human nor fully Zalaran, but a harmonious blending of both. As sleep began to claim him, Jordan had the strange sensation of his consciousness expanding, becoming aware of Siren's presence not just physically beside him but on some deeper level. He felt her dedication to the energy flowers, her fierce protection of Zalaran heritage, and beneath it all, a growing respect and affection for him that mirrored his own emerging feelings. His last conscious thought before drifting into profound sleep was that perhaps his father had discovered something far more valuable on Solara Prime than just a profitable biofarm. He had found a way to truly bridge worlds, not through technology or commerce, but through understanding and connection. And now, as Jordan Hale slept beside Siren in the synchronization chamber, he began to inherit not just his father's business, but his vision of what was possible when cultures met in respect and harmony. Outside their quarters, the energy flowers in Terrace 7 began to bloom more vibrantly than they had in months, responding to the newly forming bond between their guardians. And, throughout the station, systems that had been strained since Benjamin Hale's death began to stabilize as a new balance took hold. A harmony of human ingenuity and Zalaran tradition that would protect the precious botanical treasures of Solara Prime for generations to come. The inheritance was complete, not just of property and position, but of purpose and partnership. Jordan had inherited his alien stepsister's best friend, and now she was sharing his bed. But more importantly, she was sharing his destiny, as together they forged a future that would honor both their worlds.